This is the pawn endgame that changed history. But first, let's go back to where it all started. In 1927, the chess world is shocked by Alexander Alekhine defeating the invincible Capablanca, thought by many to be the greatest chess player ever, as he once went 8 years without losing a single chess game. Alekhine, now newly world champion, goes on to dominate the chess world with much better opening preparation, notably defending his title against Efim Bogolyubov in 1929, then destroying everyone in San Remo 1930, what a chess tournament, and Bled 1931. He pursues his dominance by defending his title once more against Efim Bogolyubov in 1932. Alekhine is as dominant as we've ever seen in the chess world. This brings us all the way to 1933, and this guy. Bing! Meet Dr. Marcellus Uyve, a professor from Amsterdam who taught mathematics in a girls' gymnasium. But what does this have to do with chess? Well, on the side, he happened to be Dutch chess champion for 12 years. Lacking serious ambition looking forward, Max Uyve decided to remove himself from the chess world and quit the game altogether to focus on math. This is even though he had a great friend by his side, Hans Kmoch, who kept encouraging him to keep on playing chess tournaments. But then, arriving back home one day from teaching, Max found a letter from the almighty world champion Alexander Alekhine, inviting him to play a match for the world championship title on board an ocean liner cruising from Netherlands to Indonesia. This is a true story. Hearing this news, the optimistic Hans Kmoch convinces Uyve to step out of retirement and affront the great Alekhine. At the close of 1933, Max Uyve accepts the invitation and now has 1.5 years to prepare. On top of the chess training every day, Uyve began rigorous physical training which he had never done on top of chess. He learned boxing and swimming and often played tennis and gymnastics. He even started taking cold showers every morning. In his theoretical preparation, Uyve discovered the reason for Alekhine's superiority, which was due to his excellent understanding of chess openings. He was in a class by himself. The score is 11.5 to 11.5 here, and Alekhine absolutely needs to win this game. Thankful for him, he's winning with black, which is huge in those days. Which brings us to this middle game in which Alekhine has a small advantage, which brings us to this endgame in which the queens trade off, and here is the pawn endgame. Extremely simple, yet extremely complex. Here black is winning. Alekhine's got the win at the tip of his fingers, but the margin of error is very small. He needs to play extremely precisely. To understand why this endgame is winning despite equal material, we need to break it down bit by bit. So let's break down this position in 2 quadrants. You got the quadrants on the king side with the kings, and on the queen side with no queens. So let's start with this king side here. This is a 4-on-2. Versus a 3-on-1 for the black pieces. The 4-on-2 is heavily handicapped. First of all, you always want the majority with the least amount of opposite pawns. So here this 3-on-1 is right out of the gate favorable for black. But that's not all. Something is heavily handicapping these pawns, and that is the doubled pawns here. You see, by being on 3 files, these pawns can act less quickly and less dangerously. For example, if it's black here to play, you should play e5, because now this pawn cannot move up, and white, if they do so, completely cripples their pawn structure. So now white has to push up and only has to play with these 2-on-1 pawns, whereas these 2 pawns are completely out of play. Furthermore, another hidden advantage in this position is not only this 3-on-1, because there's only 1 pawn opposite, so it's way better majority, but also that these are distant pawns, meaning that this king is so far away, it has to go all the way across the board just to stop these pawns, whereas this king can sit still, save the tempi, save all those moves, and stop the 4 pawns on the king side. So why can't you just play pawn to a5, scale your pawns on the wing, and win the game? Not so fast. Here white has f4, preventing our push and enabling a true 4-on-2 on the king side, equalizing the playing field. And these pawns are too slow to the king rushing to the defense of these breaking pawns. And what will happen basically is that black will defend the pawns. They won't just let them sit. They can't promote. And here white will enact these pawns, make them a force, and cover all bases here, and preventing all counterplay from this black king. So Alekhine finds the only move in this position to turn this match around back into his favor with the move e5, the only winning move in this position, preventing this pawn to f4, and suddenly white has a very tough time mobilizing on this king side and creating that barricade against our king. Ivan now needs to find a convincing plan to draw the game. He knows that this king is in time to stop this 3-on-1, but it won't be enough if the 3-on-1 attract the king to stay and our king can sweep in and distract these pawns and just all grab everything on the king side. So he comes up with a very magical plan, and that is to go first king f1, king e2, king e3, short stop on the e3 square to trade on f4, takes, king takes, and now come all the way back to the edge of the board to defend against this and have a 3-on-1 against 3-on-1. And that is his plan. He goes king to f1. And here, Alekhine once again, thin margin of error. He has only 2 moves that win this game. I'll give you the choice, c5, b5, or a5. You choose, let me know what you end up choosing. Which is your pony? And to make things extra difficult, just like a true reality TV show, I'm going to take off one option. So now you have a 50-50. If a5 was your option, remove it. Which one is the winning move? And here, c5 draws on the spot. We'll learn that later. And b5 and a5 are winning. You see, you need to push your distanced pawns the furthest away from this king to propulse your chance of winning the game. So b5 or a5 is great. a5 is the best by far. And in chess, you should push the most distance pawn, and then second, the middle pawn, and then third, the pawn more towards the center. So 1, 2, 3, all in that order. Alekhine goes b5, fine move, one of the 2 moves that was winning in that position, along with a5. And after king e2, Oive pursues his plan of king e3 and f4. Once again, I'm going to give you 2 options, a5 or c5, lock it in. In this position, Alekhine played the regretful pawn to c5, drawing the game at once. This fails to Max Oive completing his plan. They agreed to a draw in this position. And after c4, the white king has time to go all the way to f4, clean out this pawn 3-on-1 pawn structure, get back in time to save this pawn, and draw the game, as this 3-on-1 will keep the black king at bay. The winning move was all the way back in this position, in which a5 creates a distance pawn. You want your pawn the furthest away from this f4 square, so that after king e3, b4 or a4 both work, f4 takes and king takes. Now this king is too far along, and we have a4, king to e3 or e4, doesn't really matter. And now this nice little trick, b3, one to remember. After b3 and pawn takes, you don't take this pawn, which would make this king catch up. You instead play a3 out of the grasp of this white king, and after king d3, a2, black will queen and win the game. So after a5, now white has to catch up to these 3 pawns, a4 or c5, keeping this king at bay with this very nice barricade. The king will kind of loom on this side of the board now, and now it's time for the black pieces to infest this weak king side. Of course, this can't mobilize, this can, but leaves a very sharp, very nice, very Very nice smelling square on f4. So, okay, this king will be kind of lost. Let's say g5 is played, king f6, we bring our king up. The king will just lose a move here once in a while, a4, king here. And now we can even go b4, king up. We can just play a waiting move. If the king takes, we have b3 and we'll queen, so the king goes down, and then we just gain some space with king d5. The king can't go above this line in the board because of b3. That's the power of already creating a pawn. And here we'll just continue progressing until white has to push a pawn up. And then we can do check here, and then we can do this. And then when these pawns become dangerous, whoop, we swoop right back. And these pawns are free to grab. Easy lunch. We're going to win the game. Take these two pawns, while this king has to stay and guard the breakthrough b3, and it is over for the white pieces. The outcome of this game caused a domino effect for Alekhine, which altered chess history. He loses crucial game 25. He loses again game 26. He is demoralized. The score grows undeniably to 14-12 in Oive's favor with 4 games remaining. Oive manages to lose one and draw the remaining games to win 15.5 to 14.5 and become the 5th world champion. Why is this significant at all? Because this is the only time in a 45-year period where the world championship title will become in the hands of a non-Soviet or Russian player. The next one to do so, to break that 45-year period, you guessed it, Bobby Fischer.